And welcome to All for United WFC with me, Matt Crane. Welcome to Natalie, to Gareth, and to John. How are we all doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Happy to be on a first Twitter Live.
Making your debut. Always good.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Just keeping an eye on my diary because there's like so much going on. But yeah, it's all good, thank you.
I know how you feel. So obviously tonight's show then, Casey Stoney appreciation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously start off and talk a little bit about Casey's playing career before sort of going into the main topics of the show. So obviously Casey started her career at Arsenal as a youngster. She had spells with Charlton, Chelsea, Lincoln, back to Arsenal, and then finished up at Liverpool. 130 England caps, and then she decided in the summer of 2018 to come to us as manager. So obviously her career, I don't know how many of you followed her career sort of closely or a little bit, but obviously she was a captain. She was sort of known for being a leader, well respected throughout the game. And obviously then she came to us, like I mentioned, with no managerial experience. So what I want you to do is cast your mind back to that summer of 2018. I'm going to come round and ask you sort of what were your thoughts? So obviously, I mean, for me, it was like she came in and there was other names touted with sort of managerial experience, whether that be in the men's game or the women's game. I know Phil Neville was mentioned. And so for me, it was interesting that somebody that had never managed before, that was obviously a very good player, well respected, sort of was thrown in at the deep end, especially in the second tier as well, to make her sort of managerial debut. So I'll start with you, Nat. Obviously, thoughts on that appointment as and when it sort of came about in July.
Yeah, obviously, I wasn't, like you just said, I didn't know a lot about women's football. I wasn't a big women's football fan, but I think Casey was a name that you sort of knew about. Like I said, I knew she had led Team GB. So for me, it was, I think the way she spoke, that's what got me with her. That's what made me, drawn to her. The way she was speaking about Man United and this club and my club. And I think that's what drew me to her. And it's a good manager that, like you say, playing career, second to none. So, I mean, I'd never heard of any names that were over-touted, but I mean, you just mentioned Phil Neville there. Yeah, Man United legend. But I think if he had managed us, I would have been like, well, he's failed already. Even Gary failed. So for me, it's I'm glad that it's her.
And obviously yourself, John?
Yeah, for me, a little bit like Nat. First of all, I was glad that it was somebody I'd at least heard of, because coming from the men's game, I didn't know of that many, especially managers. I knew the odd lioness here and there, but I didn't know much about managers. I did also know that she'd done a little bit of coaching, not like anything massive, but I think to do with the FA earlier on in the year. And I also knew that she would have as a captain, she'd have respect of other players. So I always thought she could potentially bring players to her. So yeah, obviously I didn't know anything about her. I had no idea, we was going to be, love her as much as we do now. And I'm sure we'll discuss this a little bit later. But everything that she brings and the way she speaks and everything is just so professional and definitely like a Manchester United manager. So obviously we haven't been let down at all. But yeah, early stages, I was just glad that it was somebody I heard of. And just like her whole presence and the way she acts and stands and comes across on interviews. And also just when you see her chatting to other players, you can kind of see their expressions at her, which I respect her as well. So early thoughts was good, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So Gareth, obviously your thoughts then, we were just chatting about, obviously John was just saying sort of how Casey comes across and how she's well respected in the game.
Yeah, I wasn't, didn't really have any other thoughts other than it seemed like a good time for a new manager to take on a big job. Given that we were starting in the championship, it would give her, we were expected to win that comfortably. So it gave her a year to kind of cut her teeth anyway. And it wasn't as if she came with no experience whatsoever. She'd been player manager for 6 months at Chelsea and then had worked with Phil Neville in the back room in England as well. So it wasn't a completely fresh start. But yeah, more than anything, I was excited. It was a big name within the game, and a good opportunity for someone like that to cut their teeth in the Championship and then push on when we got promoted.
Yeah, I think you covered it well there. I think, like you say, sort of that brief interaction with sort of Phil Neville and becoming the assistant for, the Lionesses would have probably massively helped. Obviously, it gives a time. I know Phil at the time mentioned it was sort of a big loss to the Lionesses when she did decide to obviously permanently take the job. But I think we see it a lot now, don't we? Sort of like the likes of Jill Scott and Farrah Williams that have, recently been involved in sort of coaching youngsters. Carly Telford signed a new deal to do just that with Chelsea. Now, obviously, so Casey comes in 2018 in the summer. Recruitment, we get 21 new players within a very short, I think it was about 6 weeks roughly, period, staff as well. Casey's then got to obviously get sort of training done pre-season as well. I know those of you that may not know watching, there was 4 pre-season games behind closed doors. What were your initial thoughts then, sort of how we went about our recruitment? Do you think there was sort of, did we go about it the right way with the youth and experience, or would you like to see more experience? We'll start with you, Nat.
I think we went about it the right way. I think she, like I said, she won the fans round, won Man United fans round, especially by bringing back all players. So Millie, Hansen, Stoney, Zellum, even like someone like Jess, who's a big, massive United fan. So I think she did the right things in her recruitment. Yeah, obviously people might have said, we could have had more experience here, more experience there. But for me, I think she had Alex in, she had Amy in, she had Shiv. For me, I think she did well sort of getting those players that used to be Man United and bringing it back. For me, this club is all about Man United. DNA, growing up at this club, coming through, players coming through. So for me, it was just another tick in her box doing that and, really endearing herself to the fans, showing that she understands what it means to be a manager of Man United and, what our youth players mean to fans.
And John, just to lead you in there, sort of Natalie talks about the DNA and the youth side of it as well. Do you want to just follow up from that?
Yeah, but I'd also want to mention the likes of how she, I wouldn't say took a risk, but almost showing encouraging signs, getting the likes of Leah Galton and Amy Turner, who had a bit of a rough spell beforehand, taking them under the wing and giving them a lot of confidence. I think there's a podcast on Leah Galton, in the last month or two, where Leah talks about that, and it's just nice to see that. Yeah, she's got the youngsters there, but she's also got taking people who she knows that she could develop even more in the likes of Leah Galton, but also Amy Turner as well. She knew what she was going to get with Amy Turner, and I think a few of the players that she played with at Liverpool, she brought in as well, didn't she? Like Martha Harris and some of the other players who she played with actually come in. So it's really tough as a manager to build a 21-man squad in 6 weeks. So you need that blend of youth, players that players that you've played with, and maybe a couple that you may not know, but maybe your staff know. It's a tough challenge, but it did seem like she's got a good blend there, and obviously she went on to win that first season.
Yeah, and obviously I'll come to yourself, Gareth. And there was a comment on here talking about sort of Tobin's interview and how Casey sort of says, how she would fit in, how she sees sort of Tobin coming into United. And it says here, obviously, how she could fit in rather than what we will give you. And she was kind of saying, you'll fit in with our environment. So did you think sort of man management and sort of learning her style and knowing what she wanted early on would have helped in terms of getting those 21 players to gel?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the fact that a lot of them will have had an enormous amount of respect for her as a player. She probably captained quite a few of them as well at various different stages in her career. So they're already coming in with that big respect from the playing career. And obviously that's naturally going to develop. You're already going to have that desire to kind of listen and learn from somebody as well. There's not really an awful lot to add other than that. first recruitment phase, it was while Willie Kirk was still assistant. So I feel like it was a really good opportunity as well for Casey to learn from somebody that has kind of had to go through a lot of recruitment and recruit a lot of players before. So even though that kind of relationship between the two was short-lived, I think she would have learned a lot in that initial summer. Build a good squad, a well-balanced squad, and then just run with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think obviously you've all kind of covered there in terms of like recruitment and being well respected in the game. I think when you're sort of starting out, that's massive for me. I think, there's a lot, you listen to interviews now and players talk about environment and how she sets the environment, and how she demands those sort of high standards, what we're used to. And I think a lot of that does come from her. So I want to talk about now, then I want to move on to our playing style in season 1. So obviously we're in the championship with some quality WSL players added to some great young players. And for me, we seem to, obviously, it was very attacking based. There was a lot of possession based. Do you see then differences or similarities, come to you first, John, between sort of season 1 and seasons 2 and 3? Or do you think we maybe slightly have changed our style, obviously with going up to a better league?
Yeah, I think, from what I remember looking at those half-an-hour programs on MUTV, obviously, because it was more dominant in that first season, then we didn't really have to worry too much about like playing out from the back and protecting the centre backs as much. So for me, I think that was always going to be something to be mindful as we got promoted into the second season. We knew we had to be a little bit more cautious and a bit more solid in the central midfield. So I have seen differences, but it's more to do like defensive stability more than going forward, because obviously we banged goals in left, right and centre in the first season from all over the place. So for me, I think we've improved more at the back just because we're against the better teams.
And I'll come to you, Gareth. Sort of any similarities or anything you sort of noticed in season 1 that may have been either different or similar to sort of how we've progressed in this time?
I think we've had to change the playing style. You couldn't go up against other established full-time sides in the way that we were playing against other kind of part-time semi-pro sides. I think so. There has been an evolution in terms of playing style. Like John said, there seems to be it's a lot more kind of patient and a bit more kind of defensive structure, whereas in Championship it wouldn't necessarily matter if you got caught a little bit too high up the pitch when you were attacking, whereas now things like that can turn the game on its head. So I think as Casey has grown into the role and as the team have grown with her, she's sort of really started to develop her style, which is an attacking style of play and is an attacking football. But there's also that defensive solidity there as well. And if you get that right, then you build up out from there, which obviously I is to be expected given that she spent her career as a defender as well. So you would expect that is going to be high up on the priority list.
Yeah, I'm fine. I'll come to you, Nat. So obviously Gareth mentioned there about our defensive stability, and obviously as we know, sort of a strong base, like you said, can sort of take you to places and help you massively in terms of getting it right at the back in terms of attacking. Just do you think again this was part of the reason for the success in season 1, sort of a solid base which allowed sort of freedom for the attacking third, if you like?
Definitely, the Turners were the best. Well, for me, they are you can still put them up there as one of the best partnerships in the WSL if you look at the numbers. And I think that's it. She's getting the best out of players, like John sort of said about, Amy. There was question marks over her. Millie had never really played CDM, but never played centre back. And the Championship was a time to cut our teeth, like he said, and to play those players in those positions, get them used to it. I think potentially, I mean, if you look at it in layman's term, we do play the same way. We play the wingers. There's a one up front. There's a 10 who's sort of in the midfield, but it's shoring up that central. And so that's why I think a lot last season we saw that double pivot, 2 CDMs, and I think that's just to make sure everything's protected. But now you see she plays with Jackie and Ladd, and then Stoney as a 10. So I think as she gets more confident in the defence and confident in the midfield. That there's talk of adding Bo Risa. She'll add something different. See us going back towards that style of the then you'll see more wingers, more wing play, and scoring goals and headed goals and all that kind of stuff that we used to see a lot in the Championship. I just think now we're just doing it more sophisticated in a way, because we're not playing against. You can't just sort of, like Gareth said, lose the ball. We're playing against top quality opposition. But I think even in the Championship season, when we played against Arsenal away, it was very solid. It was 2 CDMs. It was, wing play a lot. I remember Jess on the right, Leo on the left, and I don't know who was in the middle, because I don't think we had anyone in the middle. But you could see that build up and the way she wanted to play, and someone got it from the centre. I can't even remember. It was either Alex or Katie would get it from the centre and just spray it out to the wing, and then the wingers would cross it in. So for me, that style has always been there. It's just adding the quality players, building up competition in your squad now, and we're going to see that more. And for me, it's like, I know I just said it before, but it's United DNA: wing play, attacking, quick play, counter attacking. That's her just showing she understands what it means to manage a club like this.
And that's another thing.
Go on, John.
Sorry, man. Yeah, I just want to jump on that United DNA. I mean, we've said it a number of times on the podcast, and I think it's a real well-known saying for Man United fans, the United DNA. But she's got it 100%. You'd think that she's been brought up with the club. You'd think that she's been, through and through. Because to me, everything about her is just, well, I don't want to say like Sir Alex Ferguson, but I would basically just have. But it's like everything about her is just like she's just doing these things the right way. And as I grew up, obviously it was all Sir Alex, and he done things the right way. And it's just like she's just kind of replicating it. Even if it's not intentionally, if it's not intentionally, it's even better, because that means it's just inside her, and that's just the way she is. So for me, yeah, we talk about the United DNA, and she's definitely got that.
Yeah, absolutely, I'd agree. So obviously we then go, I'm going to go to sort of summer, so end of 18-19 season. We've just won the league. Obviously, like Nat touched on, in terms of bringing in players to improve us. Now, this might be a little bit of a controversial point, but obviously summer recruitment, we had those 21 players. We then let 4 of them go. So obviously I know, Nat, you were quite vocal on a certain someone. But talk to us about that then. Obviously that summer, like I said, there was 4 players. There was Lucy Roberts, Naomi Hartley, Charlie Devlin, Ebony Salmon that left. Were you surprised to see so many go out? I mean, to me, I was surprised that 4 left. I thought maybe, a couple might have either gone permanently or got a loan. But were you surprised, Nat, with sort of the amount, or were you sort of expecting that, or maybe even more players to leave?
Everyone knows what I think, I expected it to be loans. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I expected it to be loans, and I was very vocal at the time. I'm still vocal now. I don't know what happened. For me, she's the one that I know Gareth, I saw Gareth sort of tweet about other players, but for me, she's the one that just never really got the chance, and I don't know why. And I've heard this and that, and I don't like bringing it up, but look now, making England debuts. What can you say? And I don't like I said, I don't like, but I don't know what it is. I don't know why. She was the one I was surprised of. I did kick up a fuss about Hartley as well, because I think she did really well in Sheffield, and maybe people might say, well, she's still at Sheffield, this and that. It's but I think if she was still full time, we might have seen more from her. Yeah, but Ebony, that's the end of that.
John, I'll let you sort of answer that. So in terms of, obviously, like Nat said, she was disappointed Ebony wasn't given a chance. Again, Naomi Hartley, for me, I think she didn't, she played, I think, a couple of games, was it? She got. What were your thoughts then on sort of departures in that summer?
Yeah, look, we know, and the more that we carry on, the more we know how cutthroat and ambitious Casey now appears to be. And we've seen that even just in the summer just gone, and even January. She does obviously want to move things forward and move things forward quickly. So she had some decisions to make, of course. And if I'm not really surprised about the number. I mean, 4 out of 21. when you've just moved up to the WSL. I think 4 is absolutely fine. Yeah, you can always question, like Natalie's right to do there, with at least one of them, because it turns out that that player is now doing really well, and how well could she have done if she had stayed here? But it's just one of them things where you kind of have to trust the manager on that one. And then you got to think to yourself, well, look who we replaced them with. So I'll definitely say, like, Jackie and Hayley was fantastic. You know, two fantastic signings in that summer. Could you have maybe kept Ebony for the future? You know, that's definitely an option. And obviously we've been missing that 4th centre back, haven't we? But she's got her reasons for it. I don't obviously know what they are, but you got to think to yourself, the players that they've brought in have got that WSL experience, or a bit more experience than the players who she let go.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll come to you then, Gareth. Obviously, summer recruitment, and obviously something that John mentioned, Hayley Ladd did come in, and sort of season 1, a lot of us were crying out for sort of defensive midfielder.
Yeah, I think if you look at the recruitment from that summer, there's a few players that you look at and go, that hasn't worked out. But on the whole, like, the big additions. Mary coming in with Shivguna, you know, spending the year out, and Hayley and Jackie coming in really to kind of shore up that midfield. They were big players, big important players that we needed. And although it took Jackie a year, really, I think, before we saw what she's really capable of. But now, regularly one of the best players on the pitch. So I think it's fair to say that recruitment is hot and cold. But for every player you look at and go, that hasn't really quite worked out, there's 2 that you think, yeah, they've had a massive impact on the squad. And with the players leaving, you know, she's going to have her reasons for it. I don't know why Ebony went. The only possible thing I can think of is that she wanted a more experienced centre forward, and occasionally Ebony can kind of lack that clinical edge. But again, she was young, and that would develop. It's easy to kind of look back in hindsight and say that, you know, we got that wrong. But there would have been reasons for it at the time. And, you know, similar things are going to happen this summer, I'm sure, that there's going to be people going out that we don't want to go. And, you know, it's going to happen. It's going to happen every year, isn't it? I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've all covered that, you know, pretty much spot on. I'd agree with sort of everything that's said. So I want to talk about then, obviously, we're sort of linking in here, sort of Casey, the way she coaches, the way she sort of goes about her business in terms of transfers and managing the club, and sort of conducts herself really. I think for me, the way that players talk about her is very telling. I think I still remember the first interview with Maria when she signed in January, and she said this was the first time that she'd actually been coached. Now, obviously, looking at this and looking at the way Casey speaks, you know, about the club and about her ambitions and kind of the way she works, do we think that this has been, obviously, I mean, for me, obviously, it has been part of the reason of success, but do you feel this is what sets her out from sort of other managers about the rest of the league? So if I give you an example, I've seen some managers say, oh, well, you know, we've had so many injuries, or our pitch isn't great. And it's things that maybe, you know, might be sort of out of the control, but they kind of use it as an excuse, whereas Casey's very straight talking and she'll kind of tell you how it is. So I'll come to you, Natalie, because I can see you nodding away there. Do you feel this kind of, you know, like I say, kicks us on and sort of separates us from maybe the rest of the league in terms of the way she is?
Easily. For me, even just for me, first ever speaking to her, it was against Villa, and I know you even talked about it, Matt, on a show with Ben, and she was sort of like, I'm not happy. And it's like, you've just won 12-0, how can you not be happy? And I just think that's the mentality, and it's like what John says, whether it's intentional that she's like Fergie or not. I mean, God, she must have read up a bit about Man United, and this is what is. So I think some of it, she's like, come in and learn. And, you know, I really feel like the way she spoke originally, even still now, she says things and you're like, bang, that's Man United, you know? And it's like what John said, she's been here forever. So I think some of it she probably read up and knows what we want to hear, but she said she does it too many times for it to be a coincidence, you know what I'm saying, to just read about it. So I know that Tobin's podcast was recently brought up, and I don't know if we're going to go into it, but even Tobin says the way that she talks is bang, matter of fact. This is how I want it. This is how I want you to do it. This is how my team plays. This is how this. And, you know, even with like things like Dubai and what happened with Everton, it's all sort of, this is this. The book starts and stops with me. And I just think that is real elite management, and that's what sets her apart. When other people are like, oh, we don't talk about it, it's like, no, we're sorry, you know, we know this isn't right with this situation, but I'm the manager, I take all the responsibility off everyone. And sometimes a couple of us were saying, oh, that's not right, players this, players that, but no, the players must respect her so much, because like she says, if you lose, if you mess up, if you do something, she's going to take that. Yeah, behind the scenes, we know she's probably ripping them a new one. And even then she goes, oh, people think that I do it, but I don't. But I think, you know, there's times, stuff that we've heard, she goes off, yeah. But even that sort of saying, I don't throw the teacups and stuff, saying that kind of thing is nice, you know what I'm saying? Because everyone thinks she's that Fergie, but she's not. She's loving, she's caring. And yeah, for me, she's a step above the rest, and you know, other people are trying to catch up to her. You know, I'm hearing a lot of people now, a lot of things saying game changer, and I'm thinking to myself, you weren't saying that a couple of years ago. It's only Casey who started bringing it, and we had it on our jackets last year. Yeah, don't get it twisted. And now you're saying it. Yeah, oh, we're not subs, we're game changers. And I think to myself, keep copying. Yeah, imitation is a form of flattery. So I see bigger people above her, you know, people who've been in it 10 years saying, oh, game changer. And I'm just thinking, yeah, keep it up.
Yeah. Gareth, your sort of thoughts then on sort of management style and the way she kind of speaks and goes about her business?
Yeah, I think I echo kind of what Nat said, really. And I think if you look at the WSL and you ask the fans of any club who the top managers are in that division, they should give you one of two names, and that's Casey or Emma Hayes. And them two are elite level coaches. As much as I would love a Gareth to be an elite coach, Gareth Taylor isn't at that level. And I think if you look at what Emma Hayes did with Chelsea, there's going to be similarities with what Casey's doing at United. It took time. It took time for Emma Hayes to turn Chelsea into the force that they are now. She's been there 9 years, nearly, and so I think that there are definite similarities between the two. And what Casey does is she's that kind of manager that will back her players to the hilt in public, and you know she'll protect them as much as she possibly can, whether that's social media or from the press or anything like this. She'll do everything she can to protect them. But then when you get onto that pitch, you better not irritate her, because you'll know about it, and you can hear it now when you listen to the games on the FA Player. You can hear her stood in that technical area, sort of screaming at players what she wants them to do. And I think the thing for me that stands out more than anything else is when you look at the training pictures. If we hassle the admin enough to give them to us, she's always stood there with a ball under her arm. She's always getting involved with the drill. She's always getting on with it, and she's very much, her coaching style seems to be very hands-on. She doesn't kind of stand back with her arms folded, letting Martin take training. She's there, she's right in the thick of it, and getting stuck in.
Yeah, and obviously yourself, John.
Yeah, Gareth just kind of took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say she's a coach as well as a manager. So we speak a lot on the podcast about how much of a good manager she is. So I just wanted to mention a little bit about her coaching style as well. And Gareth kind of mentioned it, because when you do listen on the FA Player, you know, she's not quiet like Solskjaer is, where he allows his coaching staff to shout the orders. She's the one. She's saying, pass to LJ, do this. You know, she's always on Millie's back. There's always shouting instructions to Millie. I don't know if that's just because of the centre back and, you know, Casey sees that or what, I don't know. But yeah, she is really hands-on, and obviously Gareth just mentioned that on all the training pictures as well. Look, she just ticks all the boxes, doesn't she? And she's still so young. You talk about Emma Hayes. Obviously, this is like the 9th season or so. This is Casey's like second, really. The first one doesn't even really count. So
yeah,
especially think in 7 years' time, where's Casey going to be with this squad? So yeah, obviously going onwards and upwards, and it's like I said earlier as well. She wants to win things, and she's not in any, and she's in a rush to do it as well. Some fans, myself included, are like, okay, so long as we make small steps each season, that's okay. But to me, what I've seen this season is she wants to win, and if she's got an opportunity to win this season, she'll go out and win it this season. And she must be really spitting feathers the way that like all the injuries have happened there, because she would have guaranteed over Christmas said to her players, right, we've got a chance of skipping third and second, we've got a chance of winning this. And that's the elite mentality right there. So, yeah, man, just so much respect for her winning mentality there.
Yeah, I think, like you said, go on, Nat.
I just want to say one thing just about the coaching, and you remember it, Matt. And it was London Bees' first season, and we played at Hyde, and I can't remember, but she was on the pitch all game, just berating Charlie. Do this, do that, do that. And everyone was in the dressing room, and they stood out on the pitch, and the players were coming back out, and she was still shouting at Charlie. It was just funny, and you see the pictures, and she's always like pointing at someone, pointing at Millie, even Tobin and that. She's pointing and telling them, and it's so good to see.
Yeah, I think something that I sort of picked up on, and it's become sort of more apparent maybe as we got promoted, I think for me is the sort of the player welfare and the player care. And I think for me that's massive. You see a lot, and they talk about, they've got sort of a social media person that they can speak to. They've got a psychologist. They get help with the media training, and she's very sort of hands-on and off the pitch as well, isn't she? I think, for me, that's absolutely brilliant, because obviously summer 2019, we did have players come from other leagues. We've also, in the first season, we had players that were sort of, 16, 17, 18, 19, coming from, down south. They've left home at a young age. And I think what was great is we saw a lot of it in the first season, didn't we, about the team bonding and sort of getting to know each other off the pitch. And I think for me, that was absolutely huge, especially in that season, because I think the pressure probably was there to get promotion in that first season. I think, it's massively helped. And then obviously we've sort of got the video analyst last season came in, and it just massively helps, like you say, in terms of improving players, because I think, Championship for me was obviously we had a budget, and it wasn't, it wouldn't have been huge, but we were able to improve players, and we're seeing it now. I think one of you mentioned Leah. She talked about, how happy she was, and she came with no confidence, and she was close to quitting. Kirsty Hansen said it recently, she's here to learn. I know Tooney said it as well. She, as I've mentioned on very, very little shows, that, she was right wing, then she's been central, and she's recently, obviously due to injuries, been back out on the right. So I'm going to move on then. We're talking now sort of this season, last season, how well we've done. So obviously we came up last season, obviously didn't get to complete the season, but I'll come with you first, Gareth. Were you sort of expecting us then to push for that top four? Obviously, it was sort of briefly mentioned maybe by players on media that might be the aim, but were you surprised that we sort of ended up there? Obviously, bearing in mind it did finish on points per game, but we were there prior to that anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised per se. I think coming in fifth, I think, was kind of my realistic expectation. I thought, I thought we'd have a good season, and I thought we would be better than the Spurs, the West Ham, Birmingham, the likes of those kind of teams. I just wasn't sure where we'd be with regards to Reading and Everton, and I was comfortable that we could beat one of them. But going in with the expectation to beat both, I thought was going to be a challenge. But it's one that we rose to, and we definitely deserved to come fourth. So no, I wasn't surprised, but it was kind of slightly above where I'd have expected us to come.
Okay, yourself, John?
Yeah, a little same like Gareth. To me, the fourth place was the ceiling. So to obviously get there is it's basically just like us winning our own little title there, because we were never going to get any higher than 4th. So we achieved what the maximum. And we mentioned at the start of the show about like the transfers. We wouldn't have got 4th with the squad that we had in the championship. So credit where credit's due there with the players that she's brought in to obviously help that. But yeah, I think to finish 4th is an amazing achievement in your first season, because at the moment everything's going right. So we topped the table, which is perfect. You couldn't do any better than that. We come 4th last season. Again, in my opinion, we couldn't do any better than that. And now in a title race, we're not meant to be winning the title this early on, but it looks like that we may get Europe. So again, things are going really well, aren't they? And it's just steady progress, slowly but surely. But I wouldn't say that we're over-exceeding either. We're just hitting every target. And we talk about this 5-6 year plan. If we continue on this path, then we will achieve after 5 or 6 seasons.
Absolutely. And obviously, Nat, I know you were like me. Obviously, first season we had sort of this mantra, didn't we, of sort of crawl, walk, jog, run. Do you think then, obviously based on what sort of Gareth and John have said, that first season we maybe skipped a phase, or would you say sort of we're nicely sort of going along and hitting, like John said, sort of expectations?
No, I think we've definitely we've not exceeded expectations, but I think potentially when you come in, we never expected to win. We always expected to win the championship. I know people, when you look back at it, United were always going to win. I don't know what she was saying. But no, we were always going to win. We're always going to get promoted. But maybe not with the ease that it was. We were smashing teams 5-0 every game. Spurs came up with us. We smashed them like 10-2 on aggregate, And then I think, like what Gareth says, probably people thought, they'll come in, they'll be about 5th or 6th. I think I said between 4th and 7th, but really in my head I was thinking, no, we can get 4th. And I think that was based on the fact that we'd beaten West Ham, we'd basically come close to beating Reading. There's only what happened with those 2 games. We beaten Brighton and we competed really well against Arsenal. And I think that sort of set it in my mind, like, this team can do anything. And it sounds really like putting pressure on them, but I'm not. I think, she was sort of like, everyone was disappointed when we got beat by Reading in that FA Cup. Everyone, she was saying we should have won that. We would have done this, would have done that. And, they were saying, we expect to beat these teams. We expect to beat these teams. Maybe there was even whispers like, we can go to Arsenal and win, And I was thinking, we're going to get smashed. And to get a goal against them, to only lose by 1 goal, I think that's what put that in the mindset. And then I think the second season, we went to the Etihad first game, and I thought, we're going to get smashed. And basically, we were in the game. We could have won, There was 2 free chances, and you think you take them and you win. They scored by a wonder goal. There wasn't really much to it. So I think that, again, raised the levels. And then obviously playing Arsenal, only 1-0. Chelsea, only 1-0. So you're thinking, add a few here, do a few here. We'll be up there. We'll be competing. And I think that's what she's done this year. They've added a few, Honor, fullback, TNC. They've sort of taken that level. Even with Leslie as well, they've taken it from... I was sort of thinking, if we get 3rd, that's progress. But then they've taken us, raised that game, thinking could do something, sitting top when probably we shouldn't have been. And it's just made me and probably a lot of other fans just, now sitting 3rd, it's good, it's where we want it to be. But, I know John was sort of saying it on the YouTube, probably straight after it, we're a bit disappointed because we're like, we should be top, but she's then brought it back and just said, listen, I was never looking at top. But it's like, come on, you were she'll never, I could say it to her, no one limit, you were aiming for top, and she still told me no. But that's the way it is with her. She's just, bam, this is what I'm saying. But, they were a bit, I remember after the Reading game, Leah said, we're going for it. And I just think, can't say that, because then that just... leads to the everyone going, we're going to win it. And, and like, I've just seen that comment there in the box, Monkeys United, they she's not bringing no excuses. But our injuries, Tobin, we said it. She's the Bruno, and it's always been said. And if you look at if we didn't have Bruno with the men's team, and I know we're not talking about the men, but where would we be? He's sort of taken us to those heights of thinking men's team win the league. But for me, I think if she had been uninjured, Leslie though as well, we've not had her for so long. Then we've not had Stoney, and we're not saying anything because it's an excuse to say injuries. Klopp, injuries, and other managers, my pitch, my this. He's not that kind of manager, but no one would begrudge her for saying actually, you know what? When you look at it, the players that we have missed, and she won't be thinking that. She'll be thinking, like what I'm saying, let's add 2 players of every position so we don't miss them next time. And that's it. And elite.
I think it's those, like you say, it's those high standards what drive it on. But I actually wrote down some stats this afternoon, which was quite interesting. She's managed 65 games. And we talked about the strong defence before, and out of those 65 games, we conceded 48. So it just shows the winning percentage was just short of 70% of games won. So we won 45, which to me, like you've sort of all touched on, it's those high standards without the excuses. It's driving everyone to be better. And I think for me as well, she's probably driven us fans to be better.
Yeah.
I think if you look now, the way we sort of approach games in terms of and the chance and really backing the team. I think that's frozen then. It was on about sort of the stats and the win percentages, saying she's driven on fans. So Gareth, I'm going to come to you in terms of then those standards and sort of fans. Would you say that we as fans probably mirror those standards, but obviously in a non-playing way?
Yeah, definitely. You wouldn't have opposition players kind of saying that what we're doing is great if it wasn't another level to what everyone else is doing. So yeah, I think we're bringing something different to the game, and you and Ben spoke about this on Saturday as well. And yeah, I think we are seeing that when we're there, we kind of drive the team forward as well, and we have that high standard. And we're not just going to sit back and think, we'll be pleased with third, we'll be happy with third, and we'll get our passports ready for the Champions League. But we're not going to go, oh well, that was a perfect season, because it wasn't. So yeah, I do think we have high standards. I think sometimes you could make an argument that they're a little bit unrealistic and a little bit too high sometimes, and we can all get swept away in the heat of the moment. But yeah, I think we definitely do have that standard, and we're not just going to kind of sit back and accept mediocrity.
Go on, Nat.
And she never ever tells us to lower our standards, though, does she? She never says. No. She maybe does come and just say, "This is what I've always wanted," but she never says, "Oh, the fans shouldn't think this," or "The fans shouldn't think that." She always says, "The fans want to win. The fans this. The fans that." Yeah. This is what it means to be at Man United. You've got to win, and like I said, I then feel a bit guilty because I feel like shit. We're putting that pressure on, like what Gareth said.
Hyde comes to mind.
High standards, but then the girls. It's Leah, yeah, and it's not just Leah that was saying it, yeah, but she was the first one who came out and said it. So, the minute one of them did it, that was it. Everyone was off. We're going to win the league. The minute she said it, but like Casey says, I've never said it, and like you said, I could get her in a room on her own, and she'd still say I never said it, yeah. So that's it. But yeah, I think it's just she's making us dream, isn't it? It's like what you said. We were comparing her to Fergie. I've seen articles written that compare her to Fergie, but in a way, it's in her DNA, and her DNA matches ours, and that's why everyone does get that overexcited. It is too enthusiastic in a way. It does set too high standards. It's not a thing that we want them to crumble under our standards. It's just we want them to raise themselves to it, and that's what they'll always try and do. And that's what Casey is building to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, John, I'm just going to mention, I know we've touched on this in previous shows about sort of fan absence, but you can really see this season, can't you, that even though fans aren't there, you know, like Nat and Gareth mentioned, there is still them standards from sort of fans that are, you know, watching at home or whether they're on social media and sort of putting their views across. I mean, do you think, you know, obviously we've kept that going. Do you think then that sort of has an impact in the way maybe Casey sometimes reacts? If, I mean, she says she doesn't read things, but maybe if there's something that's maybe got out or into the group, so to speak, from the outside, in terms of, you know, standards and things, do you think that sort of affects her or the group, or maybe, you know, raises or lowers expectations depending on what's said?
Just because we're not in the ground, she's fully aware of obviously what fans think, isn't she? So, look, I think you guys mentioned it earlier about what she said at the start. United will change the face of women's football forever, and she's not on about just herself and the players. It's on about the fans as well, and everything to do with Manchester United, how big the club is. So we'll put pressure on, but she puts pressure on as well. The players put pressure on. It's just that I don't think you'd be a part of Man United Football Club as a player if you haven't got those high standards. I think Casey would have moved you on by now if you haven't got that ambition. So even though we put that pressure on, they already feel that pressure. They want to win every game. You can guarantee that, because Casey wants to win every game, and they know what the standards are. And we mentioned Leah Galton 3 or 4 times, but you know, from what I've been researching on her, she's used to being one of the best in like when she was growing up. So, you know, I think everyone at the club just wants to be the best that they can be, and I don't think they need the fans to kind of tell them if they've had a bad game, because I genuinely think that they will know that anyway. So their standards are just as high as ours, and I think that's why, you know, it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see here, obviously, a comment on the screen about Casey's building a top quality squad, getting qualification will attract better players. I think what I liked, and I know, Nat, you absolutely love this because you brought this to my attention before the first derby at Lee, was when players are brought in, the sort of, you know, they're given that pep talk about the history of the club and the winning mentality. I mean, listen, the 2 that were brought in, you know, the 2 I'm referring to didn't need that anyway, but it's good that we sort of, you know, they were like, oh yeah, Millie Turner told us Manchester's red and all this. I think it's just great that everybody within the group is singing from the same hymn sheet. I know, like John said then, you know, if you're not at that standard, you're not hitting those levels, or you've got a bad attitude, you're sort of shipped out. But do you just want to talk about sort of that side of it then in terms of the group and those standards?
Me, yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, that comment that she made, Tobin, about, you know, no one go. I mean, God, whoever told her that was diehard.
I heard it was Millie, but I don't know.
Millie, good lass. I thought it was Abby, you know, because Abby's that kind of diehard red as well. But Abby probably fueled it as well. But yeah, listen, Millie Turner, good lass, good lass. But that's what I mean, and that is those words that she spoke. Man City is a small club. No one goes to the games. It's an empty stadium, and all these are the things that we say. So they must know what we're saying to pass that on to Tobin, who's never met us, to know like how much it means. And I think there was one article a while ago, long ago, when Lotta joined, and Lotta said I didn't know about rivalry in football, and she said the first thing that they told us, they pointed at the badge and said, you see this badge, you can't lose to City or Liverpool. And that's what Casey told her. We didn't have to tell her that. We didn't have to tell her it's a big game, Liverpool. It was this badge. You do not go out there and lose. And, you know, I like that, you know, Millie's teaching, Casey's telling them what it means. So it's like what John says, they don't need fans to know what each game means. That right now we're pushing for Champions League, right? We've got to keep winning each game and just taking it one game at a time. And, you know, any big games, I know obviously it's not gone well, but with the recent derby, but the first derby when we were 2-0 down, you know, Casey says that's for the fans. At the end, that's for the fans because we know how much it means to them, this game. So for them to come back and fight back and basically nearly win it in LSV, and for Tobin to grab a badge and kiss it and all that kind of stuff, that's even Casey was saying, listen, I don't teach them that much, but I do teach them that it's about the passion and what this game means to our fans is so much. And like you say, it's a unity that obviously she's built, whereas now people like Millie or whoever can go out and tell Tobin, listen, this is the team. When you play Man City, you need to let them know. And I'm proud of Millie then if it's her.
Yeah, I think, like you say, obviously it comes down to that kind of coming from the top. For me, she is herself. Casey, like say, very good at that. She always talks about sort of standards in her interviews, and I think one thing we've all agreed on is she's not afraid to kind of air those views, whether we've been brilliant, whether we've been poor, or whether there's things that we might have still won, like that Villa game where we needed to improve. Obviously, like she said in the final half hour. Conscious of time, so I'm going to obviously just finish up with obviously this season. Second season, obviously in the WSL, and just sort of get your thoughts on that in terms of where we are now in the running. So I'll start with you, Gareth. Obviously, we had big signings, probably our biggest signings this summer. Again, probably the pull of Casey. I know, like I said, the Americans have talked about it, and Alessia as well. So, sort of your thoughts then on this season, how it's gone so far, and how do you see us sort of ending up?
I think it says a lot about the season that at the moment we're disappointed that we're third. I think if you had said to us kind of this time last year, in 12 months' time, you're going to be third and, you're going to need to renew your passports, I think we'd have taken it. So I think that says a lot about how far we've come in 12 months. The gap between us and Arsenal last year was pretty big, whereas now, we've flipped on its head and we're the better side. So yeah, I think that's the main thing for me is, it says a lot that we're third and there's a part of us that thinks it could have been better. If we'd just done, if this result had gone slightly differently, we could be top of the league still. So yeah, I think part of me is disappointed that we are third, but then the other bigger part of me is thinking, this is a great step, and being that, taking advantage of the extra Champions League spot was always the goal for this season. And if we achieve that, whether it's second or third, it doesn't make a difference to me. Obviously winning the league would be fantastic, but let's see what happens with the FA Cup and get Champions League, good run in the FA Cup, win that, and it's a great season.
John, sort of your thoughts. I mean, obviously, Gareth's talked in it well there. Some of us may have, like say, possibly expected more, or our expectations rose, which we've covered on previous shows. But sort of your thoughts on the season, the way kind of we've gone about it in terms of our playing style and recruitment.
Playing style and recruitment, I think we've been very offensive. To be fair, I think centre back wise we've been solid up until like the last month or so. So I think that's just allowed the likes of Stoney and Jackie to basically get on the pitches more than ever. And then, in my opinion, those two are our players of the season so far. Obviously, Heath's out injured, and she didn't play the first couple of games of the season, and she's not going to play towards the end of the season. So that's why I've kind of mentioned Stoney and Jackie. We all love Ona because of obviously her attacking abilities as well. So I think the kind of players that she's brought in have been very offensive, even though you talk about Ona as a defender, she's really offensive. Fess, Heath, Russo, Fuso, everyone's offensive, and it's the kind of players that we wanted at the start of the season. We wanted wingers, we wanted attacking fullbacks, we wanted a bit of strength and depth up front, and we've got all that. So I think everything has just been absolutely fine, and it's all worked out really well, apart from the last month. And and that probably is down to the injuries. But for me now, I think I'm just looking at it as what's happened has happened now. We've got a few games left. We're third place, 6 points ahead of Arsenal, I think now, isn't it? And, we're in a very good position. I think mentality-wise, we're okay now. I don't think we're probably as rattled as we probably were before the international break. So I think we're in a very strong position, and I'm sure we would have all taken that at the start of the season. So I think that's just the way I'm looking at it now.
And obviously yourself, Nat, just to finish off, obviously I know you talked about sort of January about maybe competing for that league, and I know we've all sort of talked about injuries killing us, but obviously I'm assuming you still think, that we, or do you still think the league is there, or are you more sort of looking, can we sort of push that Champions League sort of second and third place?
I think let's show at the Champions League, just because, that was the aim overall. I think my expectations rose. I think the recruitment was amazing this summer. Even in January, the way she's sort of gone about it, Abby's gone on loan, brought Maria in. Now there's talk of Borisa, coming in, and I just think she's got this ruthless streak now in her recruitment, whereas I think it was very careful at the start. Now it's just bang, in out, and I like that. I like how, bang, you're not good enough. Not good enough, but you know what I mean? You're not at the level. You've done well. We're moving on to our next level now. Thanks for everything. And we're bringing in next players quickly. And who want to come in and who want to sort of prove and do it. And for me, I'm not disappointed, but, it's like what Gareth says. If we had took it at the start, we would have snapped your hands off to be here. But I think it's where we were at the start, and how we were playing. But if that FA Cup can come back in, she's always talking about winning a trophy. And even when we got knocked out of the Fancy Cup, she was talking. It's not good enough. We should be winning this competition, etc. But I was more thinking about, right, let's focus on the league. But if the FA Cup does come back into play, for me, then you can say that's a real good success if they get third or second or whatever, and that cup. But other than that, for me, it's third is where we want it to be. Second, be a bit happier, but obviously, you don't win trophies in third or second. You tick your box. But for me, if we can get that FA Cup, then you can say, oh yeah, it's good, fantastic season. Whereas I think if we get the Champions League, we're happy, we're where we want to be, we're progressing. But I hope that the FA Cup comes back into play and we can properly compete for that. And then the final might have some fans, and that would be fantastic if they could that would top it off. That would be like that cherry on top if we all were at Wembley watching them and then they won that for us. I mean, then it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Go on, John.
Can I just quickly touch on just something very quickly? Nat just mentioned the January transfer window there and being ruthless and everything. And then I'm thinking to myself, she's been a lot more urgent in her decisions now. It's like, we're not waiting until the transfer window, the summer, to do stuff. And I'm thinking all this is because she's had a bit of a taste now. She's been top. She's enjoyed it. We've enjoyed it. Players have enjoyed it. And she knows that this league is there for the taking. And if it wasn't just for like those couple of injuries, or, if she brought them extra couple of players in or whatever, she's had that taste now. And to me, that makes you even more hungrier when you've had that taste. So to me, I just can't wait and see what happens towards the end of the season and going into the summer, because it just goes from strength to strength now for me.
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, we've come to the end of our show with close to 60 minutes. I think we can all agree, we've all been very happy sort of with how we've progressed since season one. And we've all talked about different points and what sort of cases bring. And hopefully, we can continue to build each season with her in charge and, like Nat said, pick up trophies along the way. Quick social shout out then, Gareth, if we want to find you.
Yeah, it's on the screen. It's GT18_ on Twitter.
Brilliant. And yourself, Nat?
Natalie_17.
John?
John Foster, MUFC on Twitter.
Nice and easy. And you can follow me as well on Twitter at MattCrane15. We are back on Thursday as well on YouTube, aren't we, with you, John? There's yourself, there's Andy, and there is Zoe. 7:30. So again, we'll communicate this via AFU United WFC. I believe that is a show on Mary Earps, some of the show, and we're also looking at the fixture running as well. So again, please tune into that. Like I say, Thursday, 7:30. Thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight, and thanks also to those in the comments, and we will see you very soon. Cheers, guys.